The Lie of Productivity. My name is Walter Hayes. I am 84 years old. I have lived through oil crises, double-digit inflation, the dot-com collapse, the housing crash of 2008, and the pandemic that froze the world. And I want to tell you something that may unsettle you. Most Americans are not broke because they are lazy. They are broke because they are busy. There is a difference, and almost nobody explains it. The American addiction to busy. In this country, being busy is worn like a badge of honor. How are you? Busy. It sounds responsible. It sounds productive. It sounds ambitious. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. If being busy created wealth, America would be the richest middle class in history. Instead, we have record credit card debt, rising auto loans, soaring mortgage payments, medical bills that erase savings overnight, retirement accounts that feel permanently behind. People are exhausted. Not from laziness, from motion. Motion without ownership. I used to be busy too. When I was 42 years old, I worked 70-hour weeks. I had meetings, deadlines, flights, clients, stress. I felt important. I was constantly on. But one evening I looked at my balance sheet and realized something chilling. If I stopped working for 12 months, everything collapsed. My house, my lifestyle, my identity. I wasn't wealthy. I was dependent. And dependency hides very well behind productivity. Busy people trade time. Wealthy people build systems. Busy people wake up and sell hours. Wealth builders wake up and own assets. That distinction changes everything. When you sell time, income stops when you stop. When you own assets, income can continue without you. Most Americans are trained to increase income. Very few are trained to increase ownership. That is the trap. The middle class illusion. Let me describe a pattern I have seen for 6 decades. A young American graduates with student loans. They work hard. They get promoted. They upgrade apartments. They buy a car. They finance furniture. They stretch into a mortgage. Their income rises. So do their obligations. They become successful. But here's the part no one wants to admit. They are fragile. One layoff, one illness, one recession, and the entire structure shakes. This is not because they lack work ethic. It is because they built a lifestyle instead of a system. Activity feels like progress. There is a psychological reason busyness is so seductive. Activity produces dopamine. Checking emails, attending meetings, closing small deals, making payments on time. It feels like momentum. But wealth is rarely loud. Wealth is often slow, quiet, repetitive, disciplined, and boring. The man who checks his investment accounts twice a year may be wealthier than the man who answers 400 emails a day. But only one looks impressive. America rewards motion, not ownership. We live in a culture that celebrates hustle, side hustles, night shifts, weekend gigs, gig economy, more work, more hours, more grind. But nobody asks, who owns the outcome? If you are working harder each year, but your net worth does not grow independently of your labor, you are busy, not wealthy. And the system quietly prefers you that way. Predictable workers, predictable payments, predictable consumption. The hidden cost of always being on. I've watched something heartbreaking over the decades. Talented people burn out in their 50s. They have income, they have status, but they have no margin. They cannot take risks, they cannot pivot, they cannot say no, because they are servicing obligations built during their busiest years. They confuse exhaustion with advancement, and exhaustion compounds, just like interest. The wealth equation no one taught you. Here is the equation I wish someone had given me at 25. Income not equal wealth. Activity not equal progress. Stress not equal success. Wealth equals ownership times time times discipline. Ownership of what? Businesses, real estate, dividend-paying equities, intellectual property, systems that produce recurring cash flow, not just paychecks. The moment I stopped being busy. When I was 51, I made a decision that looked foolish to my peers. I stopped chasing promotions. Instead, I started buying small cash-flowing assets. Nothing glamorous. Duplexes, dividend stocks, private equity stakes in dull businesses. My colleagues were busier than ever. Bigger titles, more travel, larger homes. But slowly something shifted. My fixed expenses stopped growing. My asset income started growing. And for the first time, I felt something rare. Optionality. Optionality is the real wealth. Optionality means you can leave a job without panic, say no to bad clients, survive a recession, sleep during volatility, make decisions without desperation. Busy people chase visibility. Wealthy people protect optionality. The two are rarely aligned. Why Americans stay busy instead of building? Because building wealth requires restraint, and restraint is socially invisible. Nobody congratulates you for not upgrading your car, not buying the bigger house, not inflating your lifestyle after a raise, reinvesting instead of consuming. Consumption is visible, discipline is private, and America rewards visible success. The illusion of productivity tools. Today, people optimize everything. Productivity apps, calendar blocking, morning routines, biohacking. But optimizing a system that sells time is still selling time. Efficiency does not create freedom. Ownership does. You can become a highly efficient employee and still retire anxious. I have seen it. The difference in mindset. Busy mindset. How can I earn more this month? Wealth mindset. How can I own more this decade? Busy mindset. How do I stay competitive? Wealth mindset. How do I stay independent? Busy mindset. How do I impress? Wealth mindset. How do I endure? One is adrenaline, the other is architecture. Why high income often delays wealth. There is a dangerous belief in America that once you earn enough, wealth will automatically follow. I believed it too. and I watched it destroy more financial futures than low income ever did. High income is a delay mechanism. High income doesn't create wealth. High income delays the moment you realize you're not wealthy. When money is tight, you feel pressure. You notice fragility. You question sustainability. But when income rises, something subtle happens. You feel safe. That feeling is deceptive, because safety built on income is temporary. Safety built on ownership is structural. I have met doctors earning $500,000 a year with no freedom. I have met small business owners earning $80,000 with complete control over their time. The difference was not intelligence, it was structure. Lifestyle inflation, America's quiet killer. Every raise comes with a suggestion: a better neighborhood, a newer car, private school, bigger vacations, more convenience. None of these are evil, but each one locks in future obligations. Lifestyle inflation is not about pleasure. It is about loss of flexibility. When your expenses rise with your income, your dependence rises too. You feel richer. You become weaker. The trap of appearances. America is uniquely dangerous in this way. We reward appearances: the house, the car, the vacation photos, the title. But appearances do not pay bills during recessions. I watched this in 2001, in 2008, in 2020. The people who looked the most successful often fell the fastest, because they optimized for status, not durability. The busy wealth divide becomes visible in crises. Crises reveal structure. When markets drop, busy people panic. Wealth builders rebalance. When layoffs come, busy people scramble. Wealth builders wait. When credit tightens, busy people feel trapped. Wealth builders feel curious. Why? Because busy people rely on permission. Wealth builders rely on position. The 5 structural shifts that change everything. If you remember nothing else from this video, remember these 5 shifts. They separate motion from momentum. 1. Shrink fixed expenses before expanding lifestyle. Your fixed expenses determine your vulnerability, not your income. A person earning $70,000 with low fixed costs is often safer than someone earning $200,000 with massive obligations. Freedom is easier to build on a smaller base. 2. Convert income into assets relentlessly. Income is fuel. Assets are engines. Every dollar you earn should eventually be asked one question: will you consume me, or will you reproduce? Busy people consume income. Wealth builders convert it. 3. Favor boring over brilliant. The investments that made me wealthy were not exciting. They were dull. Rental properties, dividend stocks, cash-flowing businesses, boring compounds, exciting exhausts. If something needs your constant attention, it owns you. 4. Stop confusing risk with volatility. Americans fear volatility, but volatility is not risk. Permanent loss is risk. Busy people avoid volatility and accept permanent fragility. Wealth builders understand volatility and avoid permanent dependence. This distinction takes time to learn, but it changes everything. 5. Build margin before ambition. Margin is excess capacity, cash, low debt, time, emotional bandwidth. Ambition without margin creates burnout. Ambition with margin creates freedom. Why the system prefers you busy. Let me be clear. The system is not evil, but it is designed. Busy people are predictable. They pay on time. They consume consistently. They fear disruption. Wealth builders are unpredictable. They say no. They wait. They buy when others sell. They step back when others rush. Systems do not reward that behavior. They tolerate it. The loneliness of wealth building. There is a cost few talk about. When you stop being busy and start building, you may feel alone. Your peers won't understand why you don't upgrade, why you don't chase titles, why you don't keep up. That loneliness is temporary. Dependence is permanent. What I would do at 30 in America today. If I were 30 again, knowing what I know now, I would keep my lifestyle deliberately small. Buy assets before comfort. Avoid consumer debt aggressively. Learn how money actually moves. Build optionality before ambition. I would not chase balance. I would chase structure. What wealth actually feels like. When you are young, wealth looks loud. It looks like cars, like houses, like applause. At 84, I can tell you something with certainty. Real wealth is quiet. It does not need validation. It does not need visibility. It does not need explanation. And it certainly does not need busyness. The emotional difference. Busy feels urgent. Wealth feels patient. Busy feels impressive. Wealth feels calm. Busy feels important. Wealth feels secure. There is a difference between adrenaline and peace. Most Americans chase adrenaline for decades and call it ambition. Very few learn to value peace before it is too late. The day I understood the difference. I was 63 when the realization fully settled. A former colleague of mine, brilliant, relentless, admired, suffered a stroke. He had built a career, a reputation, an image, but he had built no margin. Within months, his family had to sell the house. His income had always been high. His ownership had always been low. That moment burned something into me. Busyness is fragile. Wealth is durable. Wealth is control over your time. At this stage of my life, I do not measure wealth in dollars. I measure it in control. Can you decide how to spend your morning? Can you decline opportunities without fear? Can you withstand volatility without panic? If the answer is yes, you are wealthy. If the answer is no, you are busy. The American confusion. America confuses effort with outcome. We admire grind. We admire hustle. We admire packed calendars. But the stock market does not reward effort. Rental income does not reward exhaustion. Dividend payments do not increase because you stayed late at the office. Ownership rewards structure. Time rewards patience. Discipline rewards consistency. The final truth about busyness. Busyness is reactive. Wealth is intentional. Busyness responds to demands. Wealth creates leverage. Busyness trades time for survival. Wealth trades patience for freedom. And here is the hardest part. The transition from busy to wealthy is uncomfortable because you must reduce visible ambition, resist social comparison, delay gratification, accept slower recognition. But something else grows in that quiet space: durability. What wealth looks like at the end. At 84, I have watched peers retire anxious and retire at peace. The anxious ones were busy their entire lives. The peaceful ones built systems. The anxious ones depended on markets behaving, on pensions remaining solvent, on children stepping in. The peaceful ones owned enough to endure. They were not the loudest. They were not the flashiest. They were not the most visible, but they were free. The question you must ask yourself: are you building income or are you building independence? Are you optimizing for appearance or for optionality? Are you busy or are you constructing something that will outlive your labor? These are not small distinctions. They determine whether your later decades feel constrained or calm. The wealth formula revisited. Let me restate it clearly. Income is a tool. Time is a multiplier. Ownership is the foundation. Discipline is the glue. Remove any one of those and busyness fills the gap. Keep all four and wealth compounds. What I hope you understand: I do not regret working hard, but I regret confusing activity with progress. If I could shorten your learning curve by even 10 years, I would tell you this: stop measuring your worth by how full your calendar is. Start measuring your life by how little you are forced to say yes. Because the ultimate luxury is not lifestyle. It is choice. When you are young, you think wealth is about acquisition. When you are old, you realize it is about subtraction. Subtract stress, subtract dependence, subtract urgency, subtract fear. What remains is freedom. And freedom is the quiet reward for decades of deliberate structure. That is the difference between being busy and building wealth. I am Walter Hayes, and if you are still listening, you are already asking better questions than most people ever will.